Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with this next session, which is called PowerPoint's Tips and Tricks. And I was thinking, I have 30 minutes, and there are just so many tips and tricks. When you title something generic, as I did, and I kind of did that intentionally so that the week before I could put it together, but there's so much to go over. And so I was deliberating what would be a cool thing to show you. And I thought, what would be really fun is how to create a font image in PowerPoint. And then I was walking around campus and I saw these flyers, things like this, all those posters out in the hallway, the thing here with the big fonts that's right on top of the image, and then you have this image here of the community that has a unique, like an image font, and that's exactly what I wanted to show you guys, and so it just reconfirmed that, yeah, this is the right way to go for this session. So let's learn how to make an awesome font. This is actually a PowerPoint, an image of a PowerPoint presentation within my PowerPoint presentation, just to kind of wake us up a little bit, inception. So I'm going to start out with a blank slate, a blank slide, and I'm going to show you the concept of merging images, which some of you may be familiar with, but let's go with, I'm going to create a simple image, which is an ice cream cone. And there might be some kind of ice cream cone clip art online, but I'm just going to use what PowerPoint gives to me. So I'll start out with a circle. Now as I drag out the circle, you can see it's oval. As I go over, it becomes oval also as I go down. If you hold the shift button while you're dragging it, it keeps it as a perfect circle, and that's what I want. So I'm going to start with a scoop of ice cream right here, and I want to duplicate that. So there are several ways to duplicate it. Control-C or Command-C, to copy and paste it. I could do that. Or I could, while it's highlighted, I could press Control-D, and that's going to duplicate it. And an interesting thing is if I duplicate that and then move it right here, and then duplicate that again, it moves it the same way. Now if I move it here and duplicate it, then it remembers the last movement and changes that. Now I don't want all those, so if you click anywhere on the slide and drag it, it'll form this gray box, and that's the selection box. So I can select those three and highlight them. And if I select two of them completely and one of them partially, it's only going to select whatever I highlighted completely. Even if it's like 99.9%, but there's like a pixel down there that didn't catch, then it doesn't select that. So I'm going to do that. Now the other way, this is my preferred way to duplicate something, is I'm going to hold the Control button down on the keyboard and then click the mouse and drag it over, and it's going to create a copy that way. And if I hold Control and Shift on the keyboard, it not only duplicates it, but it duplicates it in a way that it stays on a plane, either up or down. And so that way it can be precise and they're perfectly aligned. And so I'm going to create 3 ice cream cones. I'm going to put them right next to each other, and then so those are ice cream scoops. So now I need the ice cream cone. I'm going to go to Insert and the Shapes and grab a triangle and just pull a triangle right here. I can adjust it, flip it upside down, and if I hold Shift while I'm rotating it, then it rotates it to major degrees, so I can know that it's upright. And the interesting thing about shapes in Canvas is that this is a triangle. It doesn't have to stay a triangle. I can go right-click and edit the points, and then I have the option to move the points around a little bit. I can even make it a little bit curved, because ice cream cones obviously are not perfectly triangle. So I can curve it up a little bit. I don't need to be in Photoshop or some sophisticated image editing software in order to make these kinds of changes. So there you can see that ice cream cones may be a little more real. Here, I'll bump it down a little bit. Okay, that looks exactly like an ice cream cone, right? More or less. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of these images. You can either click them and while you're holding Shift, or highlight them like this. And on the Format tab up here, I'm going to go to Merge Shapes. Has anybody played with Merge Shapes before or heard of it? So I have 4 different shapes, and if I merge them to a union, it creates only one simple shape. And I kind of don't like that. Let me just kind of tinker around with this a little bit before I commit to that shape entirely. All right, so that looks kind of like an ice cream cone. I can do union. There's combine, fragment, which would take every intercept and make lots and lots of shapes that all come together, and I'll show you some of those. I can subtract. Since I clicked these ones first and then that one last, then it subtracts those from this to create a unique shape. But I'm going to do a union shape. I'm going to hop over to the internet now, and I want an image of an ice cream cone. And if you've attended a couple of my webinars or read my blog, you know about this program called unsplash.com. Unsplash is amazing, and they're a partnership with Canvas, so pretty soon we're going to be able to search for unsplashed images within Canvas, which will be awesome because these are all high-resolution, good-quality images that are free. Not only they're free, you can use them, you can manipulate them, modify them, and you can give attribution or not. You know, it's a courtesy if you want to give credit to the photographer, but it's not necessary. You can just have these images, and you can use them in your classes. So I'm going to search for ice cream, and let's get an ice cream cone. I'm going to copy this and bring it over to PowerPoint. I'm going to double click on this. Usually when I'm checking the width, I'm going to put like maybe 4, make it small, and then I'll need that to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to use the scroll wheel on the mouse and hold Control on the keyboard so that I can see a little bit more of my slide. And I'm going to make it, yeah, that looks about good. I'm going to put this in the front. So I right click, bring it to the front. All right, I'm just making some minor adjustments. And here's where the magic is going to happen. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to click on this image right here and go to the Format Drawing Images. And I'm going to click Intersect. And now all of a sudden I have an image that I created using shapes and an image that I found from the internet. How cool is that? Now, what if I goofed up a little bit? Let me double click on this and click crop. The image is still back there, and so I can move it around. Let me pop back a little bit. Maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger so I'm not fully committed. And now I have an ice cream cone. I'll click off. And this is its own image. You can right click and you can save this image, save picture. You can save it as a PNG, a JPEG, a GIF, whatever you want. It's an actual image, and you can put it in a Word document, put it in another thing. So yeah, that's an image that you can have. So that's the first slide I wanted to show you. Now let's go ahead and make a fun font. I'm going to hop back over to this page, ice cream. I'm looking for something maybe a little bit dark. What we're going to do is replicate this graphic right here. I'm going to make an ice cream font that's going to be, the letters are going to be full of ice cream, and save it as an image. So I'm going to look for, well, this could be good. I want something a little bit dark, just because it's hard. That could be interesting, a dark swirly thing. The problem is that if there's a lot of dark and light on the image, then some of the letters could be hard to read. Any preferences? Do you think maybe, oh, how about this purple guy? That's kind of fun, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. It's unique. I want it to be in PowerPoint. So I'll go ahead and paste that. For now, I'm just going to put it off to the side a little bit. And that's an interesting thing about PowerPoint that you might not realize. You have the PowerPoint slide, but your canvas is actually bigger than that. You can put all kinds of pictures off to the side. Nobody's ever going to know about it as you're presenting, because the only thing they see is here. But so sometimes I organize things off to the side or have things fly in. Yeah, question? So I pressed Control, and on the scroll wheel on the mouse, I move in and out like that. And you can also, if in the lower right-hand corner, I can have it so that the slide takes up the whole window. Since I have that clicked, then I don't want that. And then there's a scroll here where I can zoom in and out a little bit. For me, it's easier just to use the mouse. All All right, so now I have that. I'm going to put a text box, and there are a lot of different ways to put a text box. Insert, text box on the home menu, or the insert menu, there's the shape box. The text box is in the top left-hand corner, usually. And I'm going to zoom back in. Let me make this. All right, sorry. Okay, so let's say ice cream. That's my font. I'm going to center align it. We're going to make it a lot bigger, like maybe 80. We're going to bold it, and then I'm going to look for a font, because as we're looking at these fonts, they're very blockish. Not only are they sans serif, but they're just a thick font. And this isn't my computer, but let's browse what kind of fonts do they have. You can see the previews. Rockwell Extra Bold is one I haven't seen. That could be pretty good, actually. All right, so I'm going to bump this over. I'm going to make this even bigger. I want it to take up the whole side. I'm going to stretch this out so that it's left and right even. Click on everything, and let's just increase it until it's kind of ridiculous big, like that. All right, so that's good. I'm going to put this ice cream picture, blow it up so it's about the size there. I want to make sure there's some ice cream in there. All right, now I'm going to press Shift and select the font, the type there, and we're going to merge shapes and click Intersect like we did before. Bam, you have your own custom font with an image in there. And just like before, now suppose I screwed up a little bit, I can crop it and I can move this picture around in there. But yeah, you want to know how whoever we contracted to do this, how they did such a good job. Guess what? You can do that in PowerPoint. You don't need some crazy Photoshop license or subscription or anything. You can do that. Now this is an image. This is no longer, since I merged the font with the words, then it's no longer editable. It's not like a font. It's an actual image. I can save this as a picture, and I'd save it wherever I want it, label it how I want it, and it's a JPEG. And then I can move that around. So that's pretty cool. So let's, I'm going to duplicate that, and now let's start it over. I'm going to actually back up to right before I did that, and let me duplicate the image before I go on. And then that'll give me an opportunity. I can show you again. Click the background image, click the font, and merge the shapes together, and I want to intersect. Now let's do something else that's kind of fun. I'm going to bump these down just a little bit. Go ahead and crop this guy a little bit. I'm going to shrink this so that it would fit within that box. And as you're moving shapes around, you notice I'm moving it to the right, and then it kind of it will lock in. And it might be hard to see, but there's a dashed line that tells me that the image right now is perfectly aligned center with the image up top, which is a font. So I'm going to move this down to right there, and we're going to take a different approach. Instead of intersecting, I'm going to go to Merge Shapes, and I'm going to fragment it, which is very confusing, but essentially it takes every line and it creates its own distinct image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these. I'm holding Shift as I move this up, and I'm going to move ice cream up. So that's just kind of a fun little effect. And then there are some shapes within the shapes, like this little A, and I'll go ahead and move that back down. I'm holding Shift so that it's perfectly aligned, and then this R, that R right there. And so that's a different effect. That effect is how we got images like this. You have some bold fonts, and you just take the font out of the image, and then you can save this image. So this is an image in itself. Now you can see those two little, what do you call those? The little indented parts of the letters. I'm going to highlight this and press Control G or Group, and then group those. And then you can see that they follow the image. And if I wanted that to be its own image, then maybe I'll cut it and then copy it or paste it as an image as opposed to use destination theme. And then it's a pure image. And this is an image as well. Those are all different images. So I could have some fun, and I can change those around a little bit. And then if I wanted that to be its own image, highlight them, Control G. I'm going to copy and paste it as an image. Pasted it down there for some reason. And there we have something that's kind of fun. Yeah, right. Another thing I want to show you, let's grab some images. I'll have to find some, because I don't have my computer. I'm going to scroll up to the top here and just grab a few images of ice cream cones and paste them on to the page. They're going to be super big, but we'll deal with that, and I'll show you. So this would be good. They're massively big. Let's just get big ice creams. Copy and paste. I think I'll stick with 3. Now they're way too big for the slide, so I'm going to go highlight all of them, click Format, and I'm just going to change the width to maybe 3. And so that's a little bit easier to work with, maybe even 2.5. If you can see, I'm on the far right-hand corner of the ribbon there, and I can just change that width to 2.5. And suppose this is a slide for a class that you're going to teach. Something I see a lot is that they're different sizes. Like one might be bigger, one might be longer. And so if I double click on this, I can see that it's 2.5 and it's 3.13 inches tall. And that's a little bit awkward, so maybe I'll change that down to 3.01. And this guy as well, it's 3.75, so maybe I can shrink this down. I'm cropping it. Now it's 3.14. That's pie, not ice cream. Jeez, that was awful, huh? Three, 1, 2, 1, 9, 299. It's within a pixel. So there's 3 images. Now they are exactly the same width and exactly the same height, pretty much, and they're all over the page. So one's over here, and one's over here. Let's organize them. Now you could eyeball it and say, okay, let's put this kind of in the center and let's put it there. Now you don't want to do that. Let's highlight them and go to the Align tool. I use these Align options so much that on my version of PowerPoint, I have them saved as a quick item. So you can go to Quick Access Toolbar, that's what it's called. I added them to my Quick Access Toolbar, which is up top. Now you can move it down bottom too, which is what I did. So I'm going to highlight those, align them all so that they're top. And it takes the very topmost image and the top edge of that, and it puts all of the rest of the top edges so that it aligns with that. But you can see that they're still kind of a little bit off. And so I can move it around. If I hold Shift while I move it, it stays in line. And then I can move it until I see that it's perfectly even, which is right there. You can see those dashed lines with the arrows. It tells me it's right in between. But that's not what I want to do necessarily. So I'm going to realign those to the top, and then I'm going to align them so that they distribute evenly horizontally. And then it's perfect. And if I were to make a copy of this, here, so we do that again, so now there's 4 images instead of 3. Then I'll align it to the top, and then I'll align it, distribute evenly horizontally, and you can see they're all evenly spaced. And what it does is it takes the farthest left image and the farthest right image, and then however images there are between there, do a little math and make sure that everything is equidistant between them. And if I were to do even one more, that might be a little bit rough, so let's shrink this down just a tiny bit. I'll move this to where I want that to be. This is where I want that to be. And I'll do it differently. I'll distribute it horizontally. And you can see that this one is slightly right of that one, and so this will be left and that'll be right. Now they're distributed, and then I can align them to the top. And if I were to move this one right here, I'm going to hold shift so that it stays perfectly even, and I highlight all of these, then I can align them to distribute bottom. Let's delete those now. And I'm going to put this up here. We'll highlight those. This time I want them to all align left. We move this up just like 1 pixel above that one so that we keep that yellow one at the bottom. We'll align them left, and instead of aligning or distributing horizontally, we'll distribute vertically. And then they're all equal spaced. And so you can create a PowerPoint slide and have some bullet points. I think the more graphics you can incorporate, our tendency is that we put a lot of narrative on our slides. And here's my rule of thumb for PowerPoint in general. If you can email somebody a slide deck and the whole presentation makes complete sense to them, then it wasn't a very good slide deck. Those are notes. You just forward them notes. A good slide deck is not going to be something that can be read and interpreted, because that's your job as the presenter. You're disseminating the information. The slide deck is there to help you. And often I say, try to incorporate visual elements that are relevant to what you're talking about as much as you can, and don't rely on PowerPoint as a crutch. Don't have too much narrative. Don't read from a PowerPoint. That's bad form as well. But feel free to make a PowerPoint slide deck that's notes and print them out and hand them to people in your presentation so that they can have the notes, and then they can have the PowerPoint presentation that you're presenting, but they keep their focus on you. And never use animated pictures in your slides because they can be incredibly distracting. Even if it's something that just loops, a waterfall that loops, people are going to look at that, they're not going to look at you, and for some reason the brain tunes off and they just go into this meditative state and they're not listening to anything that you are saying, which could be a technique. If you're nervous and you don't really want too much attention, then and you want them to be entertained, then that would be great. I'm just going to check our time. 10:10. We have 5 minutes. I can open it up for a few minutes if there's anything you want me to review. Or actually, one thing I do want to show you, what I think would be fun, because I showed you how to use the intersect tool. Let me just grab a couple of very simple shapes so that we can walk through the other merge formats. So I'll just make a square and a circle. And so we can play with that. I'll put the circle on the square. Now the order in which you click the shapes makes a difference. So if I click the square and then the circle and go to merge shapes, if I go to union, it doesn't make any difference. If I go to combine, you see that it takes the circle out of the square, as opposed to, and I'll make the square a little bit smaller and click the circle and then the square. I'll put that to the back. All right, circle, and then I highlight the square, and then combine, it takes the square out. So the first thing you click and the second thing you click makes a difference. If I were to click fragment, then it takes all of those elements, and wherever there's wherever the lines intersect, it's like you're taking a rotary cutting tool and actually cutting out the shape, including, let's add something else. So we have a circle, we have a square. Let me put in a star. That would be kind of interesting. I'm going to hold shift so it doesn't look like a funny star. I'll put that right there. I'm going to just highlight everything, and let's merge shapes, and let's go fragment, and then you can see, oh, that's odd. It didn't fragment the square out. I don't know why it didn't do that. Intersect. Bam. Fragment. All right, so we should get fragments. That's funny. I don't know why it's not doing that. Here, let's try one more thing. Oh, because it already did that. All right, let's add another shape here, little star, and I'll put the star right here. So they're all kind of intersecting a little bit. And now as I fragment, every one of these little pieces is unique. You can drag those out. And even this little tiny piece. Everywhere there is an intersection and it created its own geode, then that's its own shape now. Let's put those all back together, and you can see all the different boxes. All right, and there's also subtract, so bam. I'm going to go to Format, Drawing. If I were to click Union, it just puts everything into one blob. If I combine it, then it depends on how I click, then it creates an interesting thing, and I can subtract one from the other as well. So I can click on the circle and the star and click subtract, and it's going to take the star out of the circle. And then I can take this circle, I'm going to click on the box first, and then the circle, and I'm going to subtract the circle out of the star, out of the square, and it keeps the star there too. So play around, like just make some shapes, spend 15 minutes just doing what I'm doing so that you can understand like all these interesting things that you can make. I mean, you could even make your own bullet points. You can save this as an image. Just right click, save as picture, and name it, and then all of a sudden you have an image. You can create your own custom bullet points for your PowerPoint presentation or graphics for your flyers. You can make a flyer like this so easily in PowerPoint. You don't need to outsource it to somebody who has Illustrator or Photoshop. Any other questions? We have like 2 minutes. Anything you wanted to go over? Any PowerPoint question? You guys just want to hear me stop talking. I want to hear that too. Yeah, question. What do you mean outline fonts? Yeah, like make a font and image, not using that technique, but like type out a word, could you outline it? I'm still not quite sure I understand. It was. Okay, so can I take a font and make it into an image? I think I could. There's probably a few different ways. What I would do for that is I'll create a shape, I'll create a box, and the box doesn't matter. When I have any shape and it's selected, I can just start typing. And then I can change that, bump it up maybe, and bold it or something. And I don't need that to be that big. And what I'll do is I'll format the shape so that there's no shape fill and there's no shape outline, or that the shape fill maybe is white. Now the font's white too, so I have to remember it's in there, and let me change that to something more fun like that. And then I'll get rid of the outline. So now technically this looks like it's just a word, but it's actually an image. It's a shape that has a word in it. And so if I were to right click on this, then I could save that as a picture. Apologies for the podium. So now I have the picture. Windows E, I can load that up, look at the pictures. And so now this isn't, and now it's a PNG file because that's what I saved it as. So is this what you're asking? How to make a font that's an image? Now I can't see it because it's a white background. It's the font is too dark. It would have to be like white or something. Hopefully, and I'll go ahead and delete this. There's IT here. They're cringing. Oh, Ivan's here. Don't save things onto the computer. Any other questions? Nope, if not, thanks.